Yeah, basically looks like that. Palpatine is all evil. It looks a
Oh,
lot
wow.
like that. Like, Jedi influence life.
Hi, I'm Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I'm Andrew Tejada, codename Arate. This season, we're getting whelmed for DC's greatest sidekicks and covering every episode of Young Justice on
Yet another DC animated podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. Welcome to yet another episode of yet another DC animated podcast. My name is Shamar Griffith, codenamed Comic Shams.
And I'm Andrew Tejada, codename Arate.
Andrew and I have known each other since 1996.
That was the year Marvin the Martian in the Third
Oh, God.
Dimension was released. It made history as the very first CGI animated feature film to be produced in stereoscopic 3D, otherwise known as being viewed with 3D glasses, and it was replaced by SpongeBob 4D years later.
Wow, that is really on the nose. So many, every single time I was trying to do research for one character in particular, he was the first person that popped up. But also, Marvin does make an appearance in Young Justice, so it's like full circle right now.
Yeah.
And we are talking about Marvin the Martian, this iconic. I want to say iconic, like he's iconic.
Yeah.
he pops up, yeah. Well, he's a Warner Brothers character, which is why it's great that we're talking about another Warner Brothers production, by which we mean another animated production of Young Justice. We are continuing on with our coverage of it. We have finally wrapped up 75% of the show. We are about to hit the final, well, possibly final season. Rumors are always going to survive, and there's always going to be petitions, so we don't want to confirm or deny whether it's actually gone. But we're starting Young Justice season 4. We are in Phantoms right now. Special thing about this season was many things, actually. It was produced for HBO Max in particular after DC Universe had officially shut down. Also, it was produced during COVID. So the announcement of the season 4 came out during our conversation last week when we were covering the audio play. And then that's when it was announced about Phantoms coming out. But then at that point, COVID was happening. So fact about this in particular was season 4, they had started to record all the audio for it all together. COVID started to happen. So everybody was working from home. Greg Weisman tells a story about how they were able to get some things from some people. They were able to get some recordings, but then thankfully to a studio that was really just diligent on their own COVID protocols in terms of allowing people to come in to record. If a voice actor didn't have the space to do so, they gave them a space by allowing them to drive up in their car or get driven over in a car, then walk through a booth, like this like little tube, kind of like I'm assuming like Bubble Boy, to get to the booth so they could record, and they will have someone on staff clean everything down before the next person has to come in.
I assume they called it a Zeta tube internally.
I would hope so.
Otherwise, they have failed me, and I'm not impressed anymore.
Oh, but yeah, so there might be some differences in maybe some audio quality throughout the show. We will see, but I'm pretty sure that they did a great job in sound fixing and editing everything, especially as we're covering these first 4 episodes in Phantoms: Inhospitable, Needful, Volatile, and Involuntary. All animation services was done by Studio Mir, which we've talked about in the past, has done a lot of either stuff we've grown up with or a bunch of other DC animated productions as well. And we're also going to talk about the fact that in this season in particular, it is broken down into arcs, very much like an anime here. As we start off with episodes 1 through 4 is the Superboy Miss Martian arc. This is our way of getting a chance to see, as the producers wanted it to be done, to see where each person from the year zero team, where they are now, about 10 years later, two cancellations and growth and all that. So with all this to say, we have Superboy and Miss Martian that started off. And the titles for this one, which I actually just learned very recently, the title cards for this season actually spell out something in particular, just like our season last season.
Oh, did
It is a
not.
bit of a
Hmm.
it is a bit of a spoiler. So I could say it now, or I could wait until it's all done.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even see what it is yet, just looking at the title. So we can save it.
All right. So we're gonna wait on that. Again, we're starting with our Superboy Miss Martian episode titles, is what I'm calling this because we are breaking this down into the arcs. Our cast list is as follows: we got Nolan North as Superboy, Danica McKellar as Miss Martian, Greg Sipes as Beast Boy. We got a famous DC voice actor. I mean, he's a actor and voice actor in general, but he has been voicing so many characters in the DC universe, including at time as Batman and Batman the Brave and the Bold. As we have D. Bradley Baker, who is Chameleon Boy, Kar Maang, and Desaad.
Oh,
Yeah,
whoa.
right.
Okay.
Next up, Ben Diskin returns to do harm as Makam or Ma'ala Fa'ek.
Damn him. Damn him. Not the actor, just the character.
Just harm. We got Carrie Walgren, who is Saturn Girl, Phantom Girl, and Mama Moors, who plays Jen Moors. Mama Moors sounds just better to me.
Yeah.
Next up in the McGann family, we got Hendon Walsh, who is voicing Emery Johns. Kevin Michael Richardson is John Jones, or the Martian Manhunter. And finally, to wrap up our list, we have the original voice actor for the Martian Manhunter during our Justice League Unlimited series of timelines. We have Carl Lumbly, who is Matt Moors, playing the father of Miss Martian.
Or Isaiah Bradley for you Marvel fans.
Yes, yes, yes. Put some respect on the first Black Captain America. I'm just saying. All right, so now that we got our cast list, a run through of what to expect for season 4, let's Zeta Tube over to the beginning of Inhospitable.
As the great philosopher said, it started off with a kiss. How did it end up like this? Because we see a kiss of Superboy and Miss Martian before we get get whelmed for their wedding, because they're going to go get married, but before they do a civil ceremony on Earth, they're going to go to Mars so they can do it traditionally. And there are a couple of updates we see right here. We're back in Happy Harbor, so we see that now Harper and Cullen are living in the superhero house. They're away from their bad parents. We also learn that Brion is not speaking to Violet or Tara, so they still don't know where he is. He's kind of in the wind. And this trip they're making is a 1 month trip each way. So I do appreciate, again, the space accuracy here of how long it realistically take you to make that trip with a, enhanced spaceship given. But it's a so 3 months total they're going to be gone, and Beast Boy is coming along, and the first thing he does is make a knockoff Star Trek ship. So I hope they don't get sued. And as they take off for this great journey, we see again someone with a Legionnaire ring watching in the shadows.
Yep. So as this journey begins, we take a 1 month jump. First, I want to point out though that the theme song is back in this season. Very happy about that, because it just gives that Young Justice feel again from back in season 1. So now we take a 1 month jump. It's March 22nd. McGann is excited as she actually sees the red planet there. But as she as Superboy are just elated over the fact that they're very close to finally getting married, Gar is just, I don't even know what to call it. It's just like an angsty teenager that you just like. Honestly, Gar's a dick. He's just acting like a dick.
Hey, look, in order for Young Justice to run, a sacrifice must be made, and there must be a most aggro character of the season. Previous award holders have been Superboy,
Mm.
uh, Roy, or Will, I should say now, and or both. They could tie,
Yeah, they could
and
tie that.
definitely Brion.
Oh yeah,
So,
real. I'm also gonna
uh,
throw Cyborg in the mix there too.
yeah, Cyborg is a fair one. So Beast Boy's just joining the club.
And as they see they're entering, I'm gonna try this Ma'alakandra.
There you go.
There's yeah, there I think that was right. There's some strong Martian. You get a great chance to see some strong Martian culture and dialogue coming up as they are greeted by the chief science officer here, because Superboy and Beast Boy are the first ones to exit off the ship. So once they start talking with this person, McGann walks up and immediately questions why is she here, and it's revealed that this person is actually McGann's sister, Emery Moores, or as she now wants to be called, Emery Johns, as she transforms herself into more of kind of looking like Megan, like from Hello Megan. And there's like fun little beat about like how many freckles that Emery has as Megan, which is like I'm pretty sure every single cosplayer has ever felt in their life. Like that's not comic book accurate or something.
Just pressed. And also changing into Rita, which Beast Boy hates both because they're both people he's lost, and they're kind of everyone on the planet kind of imitates TV. Here we also learn that just to make things easier, the Earthlings will have a constant telekinetic connection. So they're warned that there is little filter between what you think and what you say. I would not do well on Mars because I would be thinking some things too loud. I can keep them to myself on Earth, but in Mars, I would be kicked off of Mars very soon, I think.
Like, do they put raisins in the potato salad out here?
Could you imagine? I would be like, raisins, 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 just screaming. It wouldn't work. So, although they're offered transport, the group decides we want to walk through the streets, experience Mars. And we see, interesting, again, because of the Earth TV, there's clones of the Outsiders that the Martians have shapeshifted into. There's a bunch of Gilbert Godfreys.
Oh
Gilbert
yeah.
Godfreys. No, that's not
Oh
him.
god, that's even worse.
No, R.I.P. Uh, there's a bunch of G. Gordon Godfreys on the streets. So a great subtle thing about showing there's obviously people who are more, let's be honest, left leaning and right leaning in this Martian culture. And as the real outsiders meet the fake ones, suddenly Beast Boy and Superboy are hit with a psychic attack.
Yeah, it's clear that despite the warm welcome they wanted to expect, there are Martians on here who seem to have something against McGann and Superboy's union here. So they realize it's the Garoons. So to break it down, we do have actually we're gonna have this broken down to us a little bit later on, but they do know this is the Garoons, or rather the Green Martians, who are causing this psychic attack. So McGann tells them, first off, back off before you basically f around and find out. And then two, she looks over at Connor and Gar and tells them, "Hey, I think it's best that we just head over to our parents' house because it's clearly getting a little difficult for us out here." And of course, no Young Justice Phantoms episode can't be complete. Scene can't be complete without another little Legion of Superhero tease, as we see a Green Martian who's wearing another L-shaped ring, who's watching them from the shadows.
Yes. So we didn't mention, but the bioship has separated from the group to do its own thing for a while. And we find out that it just transforms into an egg and sits in a cavern. Don't worry about that now. Right now, worry about the meeting between Superboy McGann, Beast Boy, and McGann's parents, where they talk about how excited they are for the marriage. Beast Boy, at one point, Superboy asks for their blessing from the parents, and they reveal that usually it's the other way around.
Mm.
for where the husband would seek um the approval of parents. And I do like the little joke about, did Lex Luthor give your approval? And it's like, no, probably not. Um, and we learn again some building tension that Megan has like 27 siblings, but all of them were busy.
Hmm.
Um, again, as a reminder, she is a white Martian, and is her father, and the rest of her family are green Martians. So that has led to some divide between her and her siblings. And then we launch into a lot of Martian heritage lessons that
Hmm.
I wanted to write down, but I felt like I was taking a test.
Don't worry, I think I got it all. So we learn that there are about four different types of Martians living on Mars here. We had the Bloodrens, who are the red Martians, the royal family. They are like the high, and they do adopt a caste system, so they are like the highest part of the caste. Then we also have the Gurens, who are the green Martians they're basically the more accepted Martians. They are still not as seen as well off and good as the Blood Ends, but they are seen as a little better. Now the Shens, these are the white Martians. These are like your Miss Martian, her brother who we were introduced to back in the day, or for some people, if you watch Supergirl, you know that there was white Martians as well there. These are the Shens. These are the lower class of people here, of Martians here. They receive a lot of the bullying and the bigotry from a lot of the other Martians. So there is definitely some strong feelings that pop up during this time. And finally, we also get to a chance to learn about the Yelons, which are actually just yellow Martians who adopt the religious faith that Mars has. What they end up doing is, once they make this judgment to become a Yelon, they permanently dye, or rather permanently change their skin to be yellow. And they are, almost as it seems, welcomed by all because of the fact that they're so within their faith. However, they do not get a chance to connect or bond with any of the other Martians because they leave celibate lives.
And I was not kidding. There is a test, so please take your pencils, take your Scantron,
Mm-hmm.
and step over there. We'll come back when you finish because this is going to be important later. This is going to be on the final.
So yeah, we get this very deep history cultural lesson about Mars, and it's really, you can say it's earth shattering. To the point where the ground starts shaking around them, and as they go to investigate, they get again accosted by a bunch of Garoons, the Green Martians, who were calling them like Shens and disrespectful and all this. McGann once again shuts this all down, but not before Gar turns into this beast called the Ma'alafa'ek to try and scare them away. And because the Green Martians are so intimidated by this, they start brain blasting him, leading him to more or less pass out. So McGann has to come in, stop the fighting, and they bring everybody back in. He recovers, but now McGann's asking her family, the last time I was here, it wasn't this bad. Why is it that we are being attacked? And another scene that happens is that they write something on her parents' home. One word is a very derogatory term for the Aashens, and another one is a derogatory term for humans or Earthlings. And I need to know what it was because I was ready to fight. Because I was like, say it a little
Yeah,
too close to home.
the racists were covering all their bases today. Um, and we do find that it's a combination of things where they're it, in a clever thing that John Jones led the initiative to bring more Martian and human culture together. He led the initiative um to bring the Justice League over, to build Zeta tubes, and the King, who was very progressive at the time, was for it. He was supporting more Earth Mars relations. But the King got murdered, and they're all in everyone's scattered of who could have done it because on a planet full of psychics, you figure it's pretty easy to figure out who murdered the king if everyone's psychically linked. But unfortunately, they don't have the information. They have no idea who did it. So everyone's blaming everyone. The white Martians are blaming the green and vice versa. So now they're trying to figure out who's doing this, and that's increasing the tension of the distrust between the different caste systems. Elsewhere, Bioship melts into goo and comes out of a pool of goo with a mini version of itself. That's what happens. And now that that's done, let's go check over to that Zeta tube and see how that's going.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Emery is one of the science officers there. So she's helping her uncle John build out the Zeta Tube connection. Thankfully to the satellite that's there, the Mars Earth communication satellite that's in orbit, they're able to communicate with Superman, who's on the other side, monitoring the building of the just making sure that the watchtower is outside of the Zeta Tube range thing that they have set up. That was set up by Sardaf in the previous season. So as they're setting this up, again, they're kind of like wondering what is going on with like the king's death, who could be responsible, and we do get a scene where somebody who they think might be the culprit does seem to start bringing forth and radicalizing his group of Shens, and that is Macomb, aka who actually rather not aka because my dude's just like, I want my name to be my Allah for X. And I was just like, you got to earn that. And he's radicalizing these Shens, telling them that like, hey, you know, these people, the Green Martians, are gonna blame us for killing their king, even though we probably didn't do it. But what we need to do is rise up against them before they try to take us down.
And while that speech is impassioning people, they get ready to operate the Zeta Tube for the first time. And just before they're ready to do it, there's a mental link that's like people basically get in a big Mars wide group chat and say, we don't want this turned on. And everybody gives their arguments about how this will ruin the culture, how it will destroy Mars. And I love that John Jones has enough clout to get up on the link and say, silence, everybody. We ain't doing that. All right. My boy Superman's on the other line. He missed brunch for this. I can't let him down. So he says, look, I'm gonna go through the Zeta Tube real quick. Just to make sure everything's Gucci, BRB. And as he goes through the Zeta Tube, McGann sees her brother in the corner, catches the brother, and after the brother is caught, the Zeta Tube explodes as Martian Manhunter walked through.
And it sends everyone into a frenzy because, again, on a planet full of psychics, the news travels super fast. So everyone knows that the Zeta Tube was blown up. Everybody knows that this was probably an attack following the anger towards the establishment of it. But most importantly, the thing that comes up is that Miss Martian can't feel Martian Manhunter's mind touch, which more or less is like kids' way of saying he might be dead. So now that we're left to see this like smoldering Zeta Tube, we get an end credit scene here. I just wanted to point it out because during this end credit scene is a conversation of Black Canary and Violet with, well, of course, Wolf sleeping by their side. Black Lightning apparently as the new leader of the Justice League and wanted to instill more conversations about mental health for the Justice League, the Outsiders, and the team. So they're having that conversation. It's a deep conversation about Gabrielle Dow versus Violet, and Violet saying how, as Gabrielle, she recognized that Islam, the Islamic faith, was very strong for Gabrielle. So she wants to know if there's something like that for her. So she's going to take some time to look into that. And that's how our first episode ends. As we hop over to Needful, again, we are back on Ma'ala Agandra. I'm gonna find ways. So yeah. This will never come up in conversation, but I will promise you I will find a way to properly pronounce this word.
Yeah, I decided against it. I'm gonna do the opposite and not say any proper names.
But yeah, we open up to now and back on Mars. Gar has woken up after the explosion, and everybody's frantically trying to figure out what happened. Jada,
Yeah,
go
so
ahead.
everything's in tatters. McGann's brother is, of course, Malafa Ek, arrested. And he's like, yo, I'm just arrested for being black, basically. Because let's be honest about what the metaphor is here, people.
Uh huh. I
Um
mean, for name like Macomb, like come on.
Macam X. Call him Macam X for now.
But Oliver Eck is my is the name of my people.
So as Macam X is taken away, um, Beast Boy is fully ready to go into detective mode. And I love that he's like, I got detective lessons from Tim and Dick. I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
But even as he's saying this so confidently, he is freaking out. You do see him um mentally already starting to crack here. And as he's trying to put himself together, we get the great news that John Jones is okay. Man is completely unfazed. But unfortunately, even though Cyborg is there, he hasn't been to Mars. So he can't boom tube them safely to a location because he could boom tube them to the surface and they're all underground. And that would be horrendously bad for everyone involved. So now they're trying to figure out what they can do because Steel, our boy Steel, is on the other side of the Milky Way with the javelin. So now they're struggling to figure out how are they possibly going to reach out to Earth, to Mars. How are they going to turn this around? And things are only getting worse for them.
Yeah, because this is again, they still don't know what's going on. So this causes some discord between the white and the green Martians once again. Beast Boy is trying to just get everything back under his own personal control. Luckily for them, Emery has the fastest hacker fingers on this side of the sun, so she's able to get use the satellite to get in quick communication with Superman, John, and Cyborg. But during this time, the connection is so unstable that something happens to the satellite and it gets destroyed. So now we have that the Zeta Tube and the satellite that has been there for years is completely gone. Unfortunately, Cyborg was unable to get like the pinpoint actual location. So now they just decide that the only thing that they can do is just wait for the javelin to finally arrive. And of course, as we mentioned, this is a planet full of psychics. So rumors start spreading. People are still thinking that John might be dead, but information is still getting out there. And the person who was probably the loudest one in the room, who I couldn't tell if he was actually just yelling this out, was Res Edda, who immediately accuses Ma'alafa Ek of terrorism, tells him to bring him into the royal palace to get taken into the dungeon so that they can further question him about if Martian Manhunter is really dead, what was his involvement in the explosion of the Zeta Tube, and was he also responsible for the explosion of the satellite? And ultimately, what is his end goal here? Like, why even come after them in such a big way?
Yeah, so McGann decides to do some investigative work too. And she's kind of putting two and two together of like, we captured him before the Zeta Tube exploded. He was definitely in our custody when the satellite exploded. So it can't directly be him responsible for everything. And as they're putting together the mystery, they also have this conversation between siblings about how McGann and Macomb were the two white Martians in their family outside of their father. And all their other siblings seem to be racist towards them, to be honest. They seem to be more focused on their clout, on trying to pass for green. Because I guess genetically they were green, but even I don't know, unless Martian genetics work differently, they were half white Martian as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of tried to distance themselves from it. And Macomb asked McGann, when you went to Earth, why didn't you take me? You should have protected me because I was a kid. And McGann hits him with, I was a kid too. I didn't know what to do, so I stowed away to Earth, and I didn't think about you. I didn't think about taking you because if she had, he might not have become so radicalized. He might have had the same freedom and joy that she has now, but that time is too late. So now, after the scene, we go back to the scene of the crime, where after paying respect to elongated man for his detective skills, again, nice.
Yeah.
We get a visit from the prince.
Yes, we get introduced to Prince Jem. He arrives to he gives a bit more context of like why things are the way they are right now, this discourse between Martians. He says a lot of it stems from the murder of his father. And he was already planning to reopen the case with now that John Jones was on planet, but Connor and Gar offer their assistance because they do believe that maybe there might be some connection to the destruction of the Zeta 2, the destruction of the satellite, and maybe his father's case. Because, as you mentioned earlier, the king was a big proponent for um, welcoming Earthlings and the Earth side of things because of the fact that he saw what it was doing, the good things it was doing for his country and for his planet. Um, Prince Jem only has one thing. He just requests to just be kept informed. And the more that this is happening, we get a chance now that we're building up on like the sides where it's like McGann knows it's not her brother because as mentioned, he didn't know anything about the explosion of the satellite, showing that he didn't have any part in that. And now, as she heads on back, they realize that they have to find some way to figure out if all of these things are connected, so they could find out if there's somebody they need to send upriver. But before we figure that out, we got to go to the Sacred River, because this is where McGann and Connor decide to take a break from everything happening here to continue on with their wedding planning.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would know better than me. Wedding stuff is expensive, so I guess you got to keep your appointments.
Yeah, I can see that. Plus, I got married during the pandemic, so I think it's probably one of those cases where there was just like we can't if it keeps building up. There's no reason for us to continuously push it off if it's like we're at a point where it's just like this might be the only time. So yeah, it's wild to see that McGann and Connor are also that their religious ceremony takes multiple days. It's interesting to see because it is a chance for us to see a bit more of the Martian culture. Of course, Gar is not really into it, but we do get a chance to meet the sorceress priestess, Sierra Smith, who is going to be performing the gift of love. I believe is actually pronounced the Ma'ayava'ana.
Nice.
Thank you. Um,
Mhm.
and because of that, because of everything that's happening, they're like working out scheduling. They're like, all right, well, this priestess can't do tomorrow because the Connor and McGann can't do tomorrow because they're going to be investigating this crime. The priestess can't do the following day because it's Prince Jem's birthday, so she has to be there for a performance. So they decide that they're going to get married in 3 days.
And yeah, there's some fun stuff here too because we get a in this like downtime, Beast Boy finds new animals to imitate. We also get a quick line about, oh yeah, you guys are Earthlings are good at solving crimes because you have all those shows about it. So Earthlings are just naturally inclined to solve crimes. All that Law and Order and NCIS paying off. Um, and we do get a quick highlight reel of McGann and Superboy's love, where McGann was like, "You were so cute back then," and Superboy's like, "I literally look the same. Like, I am not aged on the outside."
I
But
well, I mean,
mhm,
he hasn't aged, but he got more sleeves. I
he
think
did.
that's the biggest change.
It's maturing when you have sleeves.
Yes.
So if things get too happy, that can't last. So while they're walking along the riverbank, there is a cave in, and the Legionnaires happen to be near the cave in, and they have to hide themselves quickly. And McGann tries to search for it because she senses their presence. And I do love that her, Beast Boy, and Superboy end up under rocks. And so McGann's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go and check that out. Superboy, you got this, right?" He's like, "Yeah." And Beast Boy is like, "Are you serious? Help!" Superboy's like, "No." But by the time she gets to the Legionnaires, they're already gone. And furthermore, Superboy is bleeding.
Yeah, and McGann starts to freak out a bit, but Beast Boy immediately goes into like triage mode here. Um Connor explains that he's too far away from the sun. They've been underground for so long, so he hasn't got enough solar energy to recharge his cells. So that is a quick Kryptonian science fact for you all.
Mm-mm.
Um, Superman is basically a giant solar panel. Uh, so because he states that he's fine, they all agree that you know they'll continue on, but be cautious because of the fact now that they're realizing that someone is trying to kill them. And this is when we get a chance to go back and see what's happening with Saturn Girl, Phantom Girl, and Chameleon Boy, who are Legionnaires here. And they share that Saturn Girl reveals that like they almost got exposed because McGann was able to sense her mind touch. So moving forward, even though they were pretty close to them, as close as they were, like maybe just 2 or 3 people behind them, they now have to increase that distance while searching for him, who we don't know who he is yet, because the closer they get, the more likely it will be that McGann will be able to sense her psychic touch.
And to close out this sudden section, now that Macom X has been released because they didn't charge him, um, he meets up with everyone's favorite chief torturer, Desaad. And Desaad comes with a bomb. And as they talk, Desaad straight up says, "Your racism on this planet is hilarious. I love to see it. Keep it going." And he reveals that this bomb he's brought will definitely wipe out any green Martians and other enemies of Macom. And he said, "Oh, would it work on half green, half white? I don't know because I didn't text it. I didn't have any mixed race subjects, unfortunately." And just a reminder that Desaad is just garbage. If you just forgot. And Macom basically says, "I cannot wait to commit a genocide." And that's what leads us into that's the tone we're going to end on before our next episode, Volatile.
Yeah, we started off with a mission back on Earth. It is Beast Boy, Robin, Wonder Girl, Stargirl, or actually 2 new faces to the team, Windfall and Stargirl. So Windfall is Wendy Jones, the one from our previous season, who was a little scared to use her wind powers that it eventually came out of her shell. So she finally joined the team. And Stargirl is Courtney Whitmore, the one who's been like basically like Tonight um entertainment news reporter for use for some reason. She's finally also joined the team. They're tackling everybody's favorite cult, the cult of Cobra. They're trying to take down Cobra, and there's this huge moment where Beast Boy is just remembering this battle and how well he took lead of this mission, so that he ended up taking a selfie with the tied up Cobra with his team. So now that he's having that flashback, everybody's looking at him wondering what's going on, but more importantly, they're wondering, has Gar slept at all since he's been here? Which doesn't get answered because he assures everybody that he's fine. So now they have to again, as we mentioned in a previous episode, have to go in and check the kingdom, because Prince Jem invited them to see what information they can find about the cave in and also about the death of his father.
Yes, and we do see that Superboy discovers 2 points of heat impact. Very narrow, very small, tightly wound together. So that's a clue as to what their powers might be. He also used his infrared, microscopic, microvision to
His
the
micro expressions.
yeah. I was saving one for later, but we'll
Okay.
don't worry. It'll come. It'll come. Um and so he's seeing something on that microvision but can't quite place what it is. Elsewhere, Bioship has a baby with the entire tribe essentially. Don't judge. That's just how they do it.
Don't judge. Mm-hmm.
Um, and we also cut back to Superboy. We're cutting in between these things where the prince actually is like, hey, you know what? I'd like to volunteer to help you build the build the altar, which is a traditional ceremony for the wedding for the groom to do. So the prince will come along, and even though he's coming along with Superboy, it's now time for two people to say goodbye, or rather, a person and their ship.
Yes, because the team, or actually our grouping here, got introduced to Baby, is the name of this new baby, baby bioship. McGann is flying her mother and her sister, as well as Syria, to some place where to a place where they can build the ceremonial canopy to go alongside this altar. And this is when Bioship reveals that, you know, it's time. It's time I put in my cash, my checks, put in for my pension. I'm getting too old for this. I got one more day of retirement, everything here. And Bioship reveals that this is her last flight. So McGann is obviously very sad about this, but she's also very understanding. It's clear in the show, Bioship has been rocking with McGann at least for 10 years, because she tells a story about how she first met Bioship, because Bioship was originally intended for John's for his flight to Earth so that he could become a hero over there. But what she did was she bonded with the ship first so that the ship would allow her to stow away and not reveal her presence to John once he landed on Earth, or even before that. And it's a heartfelt moment because we get a chance to hear from McGann's mom, like, how much of an impact the ship had on her life, with McGann's life, is seeing the joy that happened from her. Emery obviously is a little upset because he's just like, again, this is one of those, it seems like one of those cases where she wasn't the favorite daughter. But Syria is just genuinely interested in hearing about this story of bond and love, and the way that McGann was able to find herself through this journey she was able to embark on. All this is happening while our boys end up meeting with having a reunion with a Martian from the past.
Yes, because the formerly Green Beetle is now free, and he gets to now say like, "Hey, by the way, again, sorry about all that. Back in the day, I'm ready to help build an altar." So honestly, he owed Superboy his favor, so it makes sense. Um, so as they go to build the altar, they're warned it's going to be a strenuous experience. Get ready. Back with the bride side, McGann uses her body language and micro expression skills to figure out that the priestess was once in a relationship with the prince. And even though she's like, okay, it was hard for me, this is where everyone starts sharing a little bit more. And we hear that McGann's mom was disowned from the family for marrying a white Martian. So everyone really has gone through these things because of the caste system. The priestess said, I was a green Martian, he's a red. Like, how I had no business being with him. That's why, kind of influenced her decision to become a priestess. So as we're opening up, we cut back to the groom side, and we get one of the most hilarious lines in the show where they talk about John Jones. They say, oh, you know what? Before he left, he was kind of different. But on Earth, he learned racial tolerance. What a funny joke, writers.
I wonder if that's uh, there might be something there because he chose to be a black man on Earth. Um, I wonder if it was like he was forced to learn racial tolerance. He didn't really have no other choice. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
um, but along with racial tolerance, Ma'at shares that he also realized that his brother-in-law picked up on empathy and compassion, which is something that he continuously shared through his satellite streams to Mars in hopes that maybe that would also change things. This is a great conversation because this is happening between Matt and Connor, while Gar, Baars, and Prince Jem are using molten rocks to help build this ceremonial altar, which causes Gar to experience a moment of like strong, I'm assuming PTSD here, because his mind starts playing tricks on him. And when you're thinking about hot lava, of course you gotta think about our boy Hot Lava.
Yes, he has this vision of Brion uh coming out of the lava and getting ready to attack. And this is actually very reminiscent, I think, of the haunted episode of Teen Titans,
Mm-hmm.
where Robin hallucinates seeing Deathstroke and starts freaking out at everybody. Same thing happens here, where um Beast Boy starts freaking out and eager to get Superboy of out from the lava where they are. Unfortunately, in the confusion and rupture and everything, Superboy's tank that he was using to breathe gets ruptured. So now he's losing oxygen, or I guess oxygen. I'm not sure what's in there actually, but whatever it
I think
is,
I think it was oxygen. They make a comment about oxygen at some point, so I'm assuming.
yeah, he's losing whatever. Whatever he needs to live, he's losing it. And before and Beast Boy ends up in his confusion again in his this beast form, taking Superboy up towards the surface, which they're all told is very dangerous right now. So before we get to find out what happens with him, McGann and her sister have a conversation, and things are tense between them. Um, as they're trying to build this wedding canopy, and they're having an argument about their past, and eventually McGann calls her sister out and says, Emery, you were supposed to protect me from all this racism, for all this hatred, and you didn't. You just cared about being popular. And Emery responds, I was just a kid. What did you want me to do? And this is where it clicks for Megan finally that yes, everything that's happened to her is wrong. She never deserved the hatred that came her way just for existing. But at the end of the day, what she needed to remember, all everybody in the family needed to remember, what they were all kids doing the best they could. And
Mm-hmm.
the kids just didn't know how to do this. They couldn't handle a complex issue. Adults still have trouble handling it. So this is a big moment of in their relationship, a big point, because now they finally understand none of it what that happened was their fault. It was society around them that pushed them to this point. So it's a really good moment between the sisters, but elsewhere we got to worry about the boys.
But before we do, I do want to bring up something that
Mm-hmm.
also came up during that conversation, and it was McGann and Emery's mother coming into the conclusion of that statement. At one point during their argument, McGann and Emery both turn into their full Martian form. The one that's, you know, the only it's the more like a hulking masked form that they have, and it's their true Martian form. During that time, Jean, she comes over and she tells McGann that, she's sorry for everything that she had to experience, but something that she wanted to point out was that McGann, when she turned into her white Martian form, she said that was what she really truly looks like, and she wants to be seen like that. And Jen says, "No, I actually felt the psychic wave coming off of you of faults of a pretender when you turned into that form. Back in your humanoid form, this like Megan, this like hello Megan look as a white Martian, I can tell that's truly you. And I'm sorry that I never actually accepted that before today." So a lot of healing is definitely happening here. Who's not getting healed is Superboy, because my man's is out here struggling to catch his breath on the surface of Mars, while Beast Boy has basically left him behind because he still sees Geoforce chasing after him, accusing him of failing him, of being the person that turned him into this thing. And now, in order to get revenge, he's going to kill Connor and then Beast Boy. So when Gar he reaches this point where it's just like he's tripped, he's transformed back into his normal self, and he knows he can't get away. Geoforce comes in. This illusion of Geoforce comes in for the final blow, but then all of a sudden everything stops. Geoforce melts away, and the only person that's there is McGann in this mindscape that Gar now has, and she's telling him, Geoforce, this Geoforce you have here is fake. I can tell though that during the attacks from the Garoons earlier, and a bunch of the other times you've been mind blast, you experience a psychic and somehow, or actually rather, a psychosomatic wound on your mind. So she's able to heal the bodily injury that he experienced. However, she does tell him that you still have too much trauma that you've gone through, and I can never heal that. So I think it's time for you to actually talk to someone. And this is what breaks Gar out from his state of like just basically going into this like PTSD, very action oriented mindset that he had.
Yeah, and it also helps that the prince does pick him up physically.
Mm-hmm.
So the mental and physical support helps, but in a really unexpected twist, when they meet up with McGann, she admits, "I didn't even know you guys were in trouble, so I didn't help Beast Boy. The McGann in your head was not me." And it's revealed that a Legionnaire actually stepped in for that moment. And they kind of wonder, were we supposed to do that? Was that always us helping Beast Boy, or was that something new that happened as a result of this us in the timeline? So they're now questioning, are they doing the right thing? Are they staying too close? But in a bright note for once, we see that the canopy has been built by the bride. The altar is ready. So the wedding is coming. And before we go to the next episode, we get a great post-credit scene where Superman is up on the watchtower talking to Lois. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not up here to avoid diaper duty at all." And as he's having this very lively conversation with Lois, uh, she mentions that her eye, Jonathan Kent's eyes might be glowing a little bit. So Superman immediately rushes to Cyborg for a boom tube in case he lasers the whole house, and because those insurance premiums would be crazy.
Yeah, if you've seen enough Smallville, you know how much how much damage that can cause. So now that Johnny might involuntarily activate his Kryptonian powers, we hop on over to our last episode, Involuntary. Again, we are back on Mars. Everything is happening here where McGann, Connor, and Gar are saying their goodbyes to Bioship as she retires. This is the first time I've ever seen somebody in like the criminal justice system who retires and doesn't actually get shot at the almost last day. So McGann is sad about this, but she's also happy about the fact that Baby will be joining the family and taking Bioship's place as they travel back. At the same time, Ma'alpha Ek, he is entering the Royal Arena and takes the gene bomb that Desaad had given him and places it inside the Royal Palace. He activates the timer. It's in Martian, so I can't tell you how much time is actually on this thing. But what he doesn't know is that there is someone else watching him, and it's not the Legionnaires. It's this person in this yellowish sphere of some sort. And we realize this person has actually been around at certain points in our previous episodes too. But here's what chance we got a chance to see almost their full face because but of course we have to keep on going. So when Malefak returns back to his cave, the person there waiting for him is not a cold chair, but rather his sister Magan.
And, she is here to beat an apology out of themselves because she's just here having made the realization she had with her older sister. She does apologize. However, it's not quite as easy for Macam. He has gone over the edge here. He, in previous season, let innocent people die to achieve his goals. So an apology is not quite fixing things really quickly. Um, but you can see that Emery is trying. She asks the priestess, "Do you have any advice on what I can do next?" And she just recommends just keep trying, just keep learning and growing and accepting, which is again a really good continuing lesson they're having here. And now the Legionnaires are watching everything, trying to keep distance. They're saying, let's be even more distant, just in case we're starting to mess up the timeline here. And we go back, we get a flashback to the argument of between Martians, because we're trying to figure out what's going on. How did everything get so bad around here? And Beast Boy finds a discrepancy in the video. So that training from Elongated Man, Ralph Dibny, coming in handy. So he finds that there's a servant that went in as a white Martian, but did not leave. He did not see him on the servant on the detail. So the other servant that was with that one, they decide we don't know who that is, but we know who that is. Let's go and see who this could possibly be. And maybe they might have a lead for us.
So this servant, this person that they go in to talk to is Ka'ar Ma'ang. Magan, Connor, and Gar enter into Aashen territory and they find his home. There's definitely some commentary as they're walking through, such as Beast Boy and Connor both saying that, like, wow, this is like very terrible living conditions for these Martians here. And Magan stating, well, obviously, well, not obviously it is, but rather obviously the Garoons and the Blood Ends did not care about their living conditions. And she's sad to see that they're placed like this. So they come up to the home of Kaar and they're having this conversation with him. They're asking him, what did he actually see? He shares that someone came up to him, asked him to help her enter the place. But this is a fun fact for that was introduced at an earlier point, is that even though Martians can change their shape, their true color will always be known by the rest of Martians. And this comes up, we see a lot with like Magan, where it's just like Ja'an knew that Magan was a white Martian from the very beginning of the show. So Ka'ar knew that this person that he was helping, who presented themselves as a servant girl of the Aashen, was not actually a white Martian, but rather a Garoon, a green Martian in disguise. So this causes the team to wonder, why is it that Rokar, the one of the other manhunters living on Mars, didn't know that this white Martian was actually a green Martian? And Kaar responds with the appropriate, well, Roar Kaar doesn't care because as he's a green Martian. So when a green Martian is imitating a white Martian, he wasn't going to pay any mind to it because to them, the Garoons don't really care. So now
Yeah.
that they're
I know. I just want to say I really liked that point because they're like, why would you do that? Why would you
yeah.
want to be the oppressed member of the society? So yeah, it's a really strong like, damn. In
Mm-hmm.
case you were questioning that things were bad here, oh yeah, things are real bad.
So now that they have this new piece of information, they head on back to the arena, to the royal palace, where Prince M's party is in just happening. There's like magical fireworks happening everywhere. But Prince M isn't really happy about this party because all he really cares about is trying to find out what is going on with his father's death. Also, he is still a little upset, probably, about this relationship that he had with Syria in the past. So when Connor and McGann arrive to share their information, um, they show him the psychic image of the person that is believed to be the lead suspect in his father's murder. And he just it seems like he something dawns upon him and he requests to be left alone as he immediately starts to leave while Connor, Beast Boy, and McGann are just watching the magic fireworks show.
Yeah, basically looks like that fireworks display from Star Wars where Palpatine is all evil. It looks a lot like that. Like Jedi influence life. So while they're watching this fireworks display, Superboy sees with his microvision that there's magic in it. And that's when he dawns on him what he saw in the crime scene was a magic trace. And when he follows it back, it leads back to the priestess that we've been following for episodes. And they kind of all reach her at the same time, the prince and the heroes. And she reveals, yes, I was the one that killed the king. And I had snuck into the palace to try to plea for the king to allow me and the prince to marry, even though we were from different castes, but the king held fast. And she lost control of her powers that day and killed the king. So knowing how much of a wild crime she committed, and knowing that if she had stayed close to the prince, she would have discovered the truth naturally as they shared. She could never be fully open with him because she would find her thoughts. So she essentially became the priestess to be celibate, to be away from the mental links, to hide under suspicion. So this huge bombshell of her being the killer of the king comes up, but she does want to clarify she had nothing to do with the Zeta tube or satellite. That would not have benefited her mission whatsoever. So one mystery solved, but others to go. And in a really sad line, Prince Jim says, maybe if I had been braver and stood up to my father about this marriage, he'd still be alive.
And of course, in a world full of psychics, this news travels super fast. So everyone really already finds out that Syria, the yellow Martian, was responsible for the death of the king. This does help to quell some of the tension. However, with individuals like Arrest Edda, who are very quick with manipulating the crowd, Rest comes up and says, even though he still refuses to believe that a Garoon would kill the king. And one of the manhunters comes up and says, yes, we got the full confession from her. So Rest decides to say that this is why the caste system exists, is to preserve order. Because if a Garoon could commit a crime like this, it means that the Ashens are definitely likely to do this as well. So we need to make sure that there still are caste to preserve this order, because the Ashens will continue to thwart and to conspire to destroy our way of life, especially if they keep getting this knowledge from Earth about equality and everything like that that can destroy their caste. And it is wild. This is the most Fox News thing I've ever heard in my entire life that came up in 2 seconds. Thankfully, though, Prince Jem completely objects to that, explains that the caste system is responsible for this whole mess to begin with.
Yeah, it was just counter all day. And yeah, love to the princess. Like, how ridiculous is we're a society of shapeshifters and we still racist. Like,
yo,
wild. So the queen is like, all right, we have a lot of arguments basically, but a lot of debate. But today, let's sit back for a second. Let's enjoy this miraculous birthday. And things are looking up. The javelin arrives with Superman and Martian Manhunter. And again, you guys, you know it. If things look too good, they are, because the hidden enemy reveals themselves, does something to the bomb, and draws attention to the bomb. So the heroes immediately, Superboy just rips up the floor, kills the decor instantly, and they see the bomb and they realize there's a virus inside. But because the virus can target green Martians, Beast Boy and McGann, who have green Martian DNA within them, it's too risky to take either one of them. So Superboy punches through the floor to get the bomb into lava. It's got to be him. And again, because he's been deprived from sunlight, because of all what he's been through lately, he is weak in state, so the lava does hurt him severely. And he is punching, he's bloodied up, in a way we haven't seen. And right as the bomb's about to go off, it's revealed that there is kryptonite in the bomb.
And it's tough to see, because as soon as you think that Superboy is able to burn off the virus, the whole thing explodes in front of his face as he's in this lava. Nice little callback. Now I'm going to call this back to, like, what was it, season 1 that you pointed this out?
Yeah.
And dang, I've been waiting for this day for so long, and it's finally here. Too bad this has to be about the death of Superboy. Because as this bomb blows up, McGann and Gar, they float into the hole to see if Superboy is okay. They're calling for him, pleading for him to come out from wherever he is. At that moment, Martian Manhunter and Superman float in. Superman starts to get weak, and that's when he also reveals that there's kryptonite traces in the air, showing that this bomb was intended to destroy so much. And Martian Manhunter having now to be the voice of reason, because McGann is distraught that she can't feel Superboy's mind touch. Gar, who looks off in the distance, and he sees this shadow marked on the on some rocks, which is a clear example of, unfortunately, of when a bomb goes off and there's that shadow remnant of an individual that we kind of hear about a lot of. And Superman being almost KO'd, Martian Manhunter tells him, we gotta leave now, because there's nothing that we can do. We'll look for a solution for everything afterwards. And this leads. Oh, my bad. You go ahead.
Then I was like, oh, there's no, you can go, because I was like, it's like I don't have anything else. This one.
So now that everybody is brought back to safety, they were able to evacuate the entire arena in time, so no other individual was harmed. It's becoming more and more clear that Superboy might have made the ultimate sacrifice here. And now McGann is just heartbroken. She still can't feel his mind presence. So Emery rushes to her side to console her. And we're just left now with McGann calling out, pleading for Connor to answer. She's broken down into tears. And it gets even sadder, because our end credit scene is probably one of the saddest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's literally just the sounds of McGann crying and nothing else. No gags, no music. It's just McGann crying, weeping for the husband she was going to marry just a day later.
So that wraps up our 4-episode intro to Young Justice Phantoms here with Superboy and McGann. So now, while we try to figure out where do we go from here, as McGann is heartbroken on her wedding altar, here's a podcast in the Forgotten Entertainment family that you should be listening to the next time you're not listening to us.
Have those Marvel blues while Black Widow's theatrical release date is consistently delayed? Well, turn that frown upside down because yet another MCU podcast is here to guide you through the MCU one movie at a time.
That's right, Mike. Each episode we break down one movie from the MCU and talk about its connections with the source material, comic books.
Which means I get to learn so many fascinating things like about Alpha Flight,
the Canadian Avengers.
Who Knew, and Moon Knight.
A multiple personality superhero.
Seriously? And then there's Man Thing.
Yeah, not really sure how to explain that one.
Pretty sure no one can. Yet another MCU podcast, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
All right. We have 4 episodes here to introduce Young Justice phantoms to us, all focused on Superboy and McGann. Out of our 4 here, which one do you feel was the most whelmed episode?
Well, any episode with micro expressions is going to be my favorite automatic. But yeah, seriously, there was some really good stuff in these opening episodes. The premiere was a little heavy. It's a reorientation into the series. But the other 3 episodes were pretty solid. What puts Volatile out in front for me was it was a combination of everything. Mm-hmm. So we have the ongoing mystery murder of the king. We have Beast Boy dealing with his past trauma. And we have McGann trying to unpack her family's racism and the internal hate that she carries against people who didn't defend her. And I feel like it's just so important, that conversation that she has with her sister about them just being kids. Mm-hmm. That really hits even more so than the previous episode. Because for anyone with siblings, you'll understand you have an argument with your sibling about something way in the past. And it's not always the case, but sometimes you look back and say, there were things outside of it that brought us to this point. It wasn't just something she did, he did, whatever. So it's a really important lesson between resolving siblings. I thought the Beast Boy track was handled really wonderfully about how he is slowly breaking down and eventually explodes and needs help. It's not just an easy magic fix. He does need counseling as well. So it really has a good combination of action, drama, and really pushes character relationships to new places, even though it's not necessarily the most plot pivotal going down the line. I think it does stand out, maybe because of that, maybe because they decided to slow down and really get into these characters, get into their heads, and let us feel them and feel what they were going through. And I do have to say, really quickly about the premiere, I love the scene about Violet choosing to embrace Islam, or at least give it a try. Why they put it at the end of this episode is beyond me. The first episode, because she isn't seen for the next 3.
Yeah.
So I have no idea why this scene was there. It's a great scene. I don't know what it was doing there. But what about you? What's your most whelmed?
Yeah, I'm also gonna give it to Volatile because I appreciated the conversations that were being held. It's surprising for me to at least see. It's like they stress so often that this was it's been 10 years since we first got introduced to these characters, and you realize how much they've grown in this episode here, where McGann is ready to have that conversation with her sister and recognizing that she can't put the entire blame on a societal construct that forced her to be in the experience that she had. Also, I really appreciated the conversation that Connor had with Maat, to have just sharing about hey, I appreciate your strength and your resolve during this entire trial that is building the altar, while also having these very blunt conversations of what it was like for them to be outsiders, because of the fact that for Maat, because he's a white Martian, his wife was basically disowned by her family, and him actually showing us how intense this level of bigotry really is. So but coming from that is also Superboy being able to say the right things. He's not trying to justify why one person did one thing and the other person did the other thing. He's looking at the person and saying, I see how you're feeling, and I want to acknowledge your feelings more so than anything else. So it's showed me how much they've grown as individuals. And for regards to Beast Boy, I'm glad that there was that moment, because I feel like this happens to Beast Boy a lot, where his therapy comes from mindscape things. But I'm glad that they finally said in it, hey, we can heal your mind in more ways than one. However, you have so much trauma you're still going through. You need to talk to someone about this. And I'm glad that they did that, because it shows that it's not just a magic, like, scientific fix for some of these things. A lot of it does boil down to, if you need help, you need to talk to someone. And it's clear from his flashbacks that he's handling and dealing with a lot, like his aggression towards Emery when she was dressed up as his mom, and then as Rita, and then every single time that he was getting the flashback during the mind blast, you're seeing him relive Geoforce killing Baron in such a terrible, horrifying way. So Beast Boy's been through a lot, and I'm glad that they introduced that concept of, like, here's mental health, that conversations about mental health that you should be having. I'm also glad that was introduced in the Violet scene. I agree, though. I do wish that Violet came up again at some other point, because I don't want that to be lost. But overall, I will say that Volatile did a great job in giving us a grown-up version of our, or more, or like the I guess grown-up version of our heroes who've experienced things and know that, like, we don't have to just solve our problems with our fists. We can actually show compassion and empathy, and, as Martian Manhunter will also say, racial tolerance as well.
Yeah. And it's also, this all continuing theme of Superboy. He is of two worlds. He's not conventional. No one else like him exists. So, for him, tolerance is necessity
Yeah.
because that's who he is. That was his whole life. So it does make sense, and it does fit for him to be experiencing this and living through this with Megan again, because that's his life. That's literally what he's gone through.
I mean,
So
when
yeah,
you're one half Lex Luthor, I feel like you're
Yeah.
gonna experience some things.
you might, if in certain universes, you might shave your head for no reason. If you're Superboy.
All right. So now that Volatile led itself ahead of the pack, it is time to talk about some comic book stuff. We this time around for comic books, we're gonna include a bit more of the history of, like, some of the heroes that were presented here. Superboy, I don't think we need to tell you any more about Superboy. We got his full origin story. We've covered it also in the Reign of Superman movie, so we know who he is. However, we did get introduced, or rather got a very in-depth look at the fourth planet from the sun. So today is a little bit about what is Mars. As I mentioned, it's the fourth planet from the sun. It's one of our 8 planets, because I don't think we're including Pluto anymore, unfortunately.
No.
So Mars as a location in the DC universe first came up in the comic book New Adventure Comics number 12 back in 1937. Nothing big about it. It was just that, like, it took place in the future, and whenever we talk about things taking place in the future back in the day, it was always like space travel. So Mars was the number one location for that. But Mars probably got a bit more popular in DC storytelling with the introduction of Martian Manhunter, following his creation, Detective Comics number 225 in November of 1955 by Joseph Samachon and Joe Certa. And in this story, once again, Mars is home to the green and white Martians. So the red Martians is a entire, I think it's, as far as I can find, a new concept probably created for Young Justice to create that more elaborate caste system. And from that story about Mars is actually called Ma'alaka Andra, which is a reference to C.S. Lewis's Out of the Silent Planet, where Mars was actually called Malakandra.
Ah, so that's who you have to blame.
Right. That's why we have so many letters in that name. And on the planet, much like explained on the show, there's a division between the green and the white Martians that causes bigotry. And unfortunately, as we know from the Martian Manhunter storyline, the eventual extinction of the green Martians because of the actions of the white Martians that led to their banishment. So John Jones is more or less the last green Martian. What happened to him was becoming living his life, having his family and having his kids. Unfortunately, they were all killed by white Martians who created due to this like civil war on the planet. So that's why for many years, John Jones was always considered the last Martian of Mars. But this would later change into the last green Martian of Mars after it was revealed that the white Martians were banished to another planet. And from that grouping, following Infinite Crisis, we get introduced to Miss Martian, who's created by Jeff Johns and Tony Daniels in the 2006 issue Teen Titans number 37. And her story, very much like we saw in Young Justice, it's a bit unclear if she's the actual biological niece of Martian Manhunter. But the one thing that is true about her is that she is a white Martian.
I just picture her calling Martian Manhunter Unc like in Creed. Uncle Rocky.
Unc John. That would be funny. That would. And the other thing about her too is that her name is Megan Morse. That is her alter ego. And this is actually not because of Hello Megan.
Oh.
This is because John had two friends, one named Ben Morse and a girlfriend named Megan.
All right, John. Look, that's like Krillin naming his baby after his ex. Like, come on. Let's put a little thought into it.
So yeah, when Megan Morse first came on the scene in this particular comics, we get introduced to a very similar Miss Martian as we see in our show. And again, this changes the fact that the other thing that happens is that she presents herself first as a green Martian before it's revealed that she's a white Martian. And this is because she didn't want to show her white Martian self because she was expecting to experience the same level of hate that was common from other Martians once after hearing about the atrocities that the white Martians had done. So as a way to redeem her white Martian ancestors for their evil actions, she committed herself to becoming a superhero and put herself as a green Martian, because from the way that she saw it, if she was accepted as a green Martian, maybe eventually she could show her white Martian self. But until then, she knew that as a white Martian, she was doing good in the world.
Fair enough. Not to be limited by, what the past, and just trying to make your own future, forge ahead.
Now, the biggest change that I found was for one character in particular, Macomb X, as we now call him, or Ma'alafa X. So this is going to be probably our WTF moment in comics, I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay.
So Ma'alafa Ek was created by John Ostrander, who was also a part of the creation of the Suicide Squad. He was also created by Tom Mandrake and first appeared in Martian Manhunter number 0 back in 1998. This is confusing because we assume that Miss Martian and Ma'alafa Ek are more connected. However, in original comic book storytelling, Ma'alafa Ek is the twin brother of John Jones.
Oh. Okay, that changes things a bit.
Yeah. So he ends up being the arch nemesis of Martian Manhunter. We actually saw him in Justice League Doom. He was the one pretending to be the woman that gave John the thing that lit him on fire.
That was him that had him
Yes.
burning. Oh, like Usher. Damn.
So yeah, and since then he's been working to trying to basically commit the genocide of Green Martians by finally killing his brother. And the reason why I say trying to commit the genocide is because throughout the multiverse, it's very unclear what his actual Martian pigmentation actually is.
Oh.
Yeah, so in the comics, again, this is the twin brother of John. So a lot of times in the comics, he does come up green. We saw some movies where he was green. Even in the Supergirl TV series, he was green. However, in episodes of Batman, The Brave and the Bold, he is a white Martian, and at some point in comics, he's also red. So quite unsure what his skin tone actually is. However, we do know that Ma'alfa Ek is one bad dude.
I guess he's like that Chappelle Show character. You know the one.
My God. Oh no. Yep. Oh God. This is Google that, y'all. But Google it in your spare time off your work computer. Don't do that at home.
And no, it was a different time. As my quick WTF moment in television, in Supergirl, McGann was John's love interest. It was not his cousin, definitely not his cousin, as they established, and who she presents herself as a surviving Green Martian before revealing that she is indeed a white Martian, which causes some friction for a while, but he gets over it because, you know, it's he's very accepting and there ain't that many left. So
right. He knows racial tolerance.
Yeah, so I found that a little weird, having found Supergirl and Young Justice around the same time. It was like, that's McGann, but it's not okay.
Mm-hmm. Do not play Sweet Home Alabama after this podcast, whatever you do. Speaking of wrapping up, that wraps up our episode for today. So be sure to check us out on our socials and our Patreon, where we're building up our content over there. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves. And most importantly, remember that regardless if you're black, white, green, red, yellow, give racial tolerance a chance. That's all we gotta say.
I'm gonna say mandatory. No chances you do it. No, but yeah, sometimes it can be tough to have these conversations, to educate. It is not always your role to educate other people, but if there is an opportunity where you can and you're feeling up to it in the place where you can, education is the way we stop this. Just a lot of racial intolerance is just pure ignorance. So correcting mistakes and showing people that there is literally no difference except skin color and how we were raised in culture. Those are the differences. But besides that, we are all fundamentally human beings on this hurtling rock. So let's make it easy for each other, you know?
Yeah. If the Sod can get it, y'all can too.
Yeah. But don't get it like the Sod does, all right? Not like
what, like one he was right, but he was also out of line. But
yeah, exactly.
Thanks again for listening. Yet another DC animated podcast is a proud part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. If you liked what you heard, leave a review and share us with a friend. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and on social media at YA DC Animated Pod.